Good morning. Happy daily drop in. Happy Friday, September 3rd. We have a whole lot to celebrate today. And because it's Friday, we have the one and only Brad Hughes guest hosting with me today. I'm so excited to dive in. Brad, we have celebrations, we have good news stories, we have a deep dive coming into environment to wrap up this week since we've been talking about our classroom environment all week long. I don't know if you know this, but the Cinderella movie came out today. We should probably touch on that. And we're going to preview our week. So I don't know how we're going to fit this all into an hour, friends, but we are surely going to try. Please take a moment in the comments and share where you're watching from. Share anything that you want us to possibly discuss, questions you want us to dive into. I know it's Friday morning and we always get a slow start, but we are here to bring the positivity and energy. So we'll be right back as you get started. Go fill up your coffee, friends. Good morning. Good morning. Happy daily drop-in where we are live every single morning, Monday through Friday at 7 a.m. Eastern. Brad, good morning. Cheers, friend. It's good to see you.
Cheers to you, Rae. It's a wonderful Friday morning, and we're talking pop culture and school culture in the same episode. It's going to be outstanding.
Look at you making those connections. I just woke up this morning and I have been inundated with those previews of the new Cinderella movie. And I feel like Disney did its job because I woke up and I was like, September 3rd. Oh, Cinderella movie comes out today.
Incredible.
I had this date in my mind.
You've had incredible guests this week talking about, both physical culture and the emotional culture of the room. And we were discussing before we went on air how incredible it is that the emotional culture, the feeling, the sense, the warmth that we craft to make spaces inviting for kids. It's amazing that that's become top of mind because in recent history, we would be talking floor plans on graph paper.
I know.
Yeah.
I will say, Brad, that's actually what we were talking about before we came live. So you're kind of giving people like our secrets, but truly I was like, Brad, it's Friday. I can't believe it. We set this intention to talk about classroom environment and nobody talked about physical space all week.
Mhm.
So I'm like, maybe we should probably touch on that today. But I think you brought this up earlier, that you thought it was a blessing that people were thinking about the culture and well-being versus having people think about that physical space layout.
Indeed. And it as the week progressed, I heard and felt that they go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. You create spaces intentionally with your kids' needs in mind. You also create spaces that are going to light you up as an instructor, as a teacher, when you get in there. You see so many teachers striving to create home away from home environments in their classes, and that's amazing. That helps kids let their guard down, helps them get into the classroom and think, "Oh, it's going to be okay. It looks like home. It feels like home." And when you are in an environment where you feel like you're at home, I mean, when you're comfortable and when you're ready to give your best, it's better for kids.
Oh, I'm so excited to dive more into this with you, Brad, over in our Brainstorm Bank segment where we're going to be able to take questions from the Teach Better family. We obviously also have questions that were submitted from our network. There's also been a lot of activity in our private Facebook group that if we had time, I was going to fold into our discussion. I just feel like we have so much to do and we're only 4 minutes into our live morning show this morning. So good morning to all of you. I see that Andrea's jumping in. We got Joe, Sandra. So good to see all of you commenting and popping into Daily Drop In on this early Friday morning. Brad, how is your week? Can we start like simple? People are filling up their coffee, they're getting their first sips in. Like, give us a little bit of an update. Last time we saw you was last Friday morning because you're, now a part of our Friday show every week. How you doing? How's life?
Life is great. Life is busy. Life is about getting our school building and our school staff uh, ready to welcome kids back on Tuesday after the weekend. So it's been busy running through school operational tasks, making sure people know what's happening when and why, working through a lot of COVID-19 protocols. So we're creating the safest school atmosphere we can. And a lot of that, Ray, has to do with soothing people's understandable worries and anxieties about returning to work in general is stressful for teachers and educators because we want the best for ourselves. We want the best conditions for kids. But with with COVID-19 layered over that, I mean, we all know what additional stresses they add. So, as a school leader, as school leaders, we try to make sure that information is as clear as possible. And this week has been all about responding to questions that signal that communication may need to be circled back. It may need to be reiterated more clearly. It also reveals misunderstandings that we need to clear up. And finally, it's about reminding people that this is a school year that we will create together. There's tremendous pressure on all of us to make sure that opening day is maybe, the three-ring circus, the county fair, the extravaganza where kids are going to want to arrive and stay and stay and stay. But it's also a canvas, as we've talked about previously and with other guests. It's a canvas that will continue to add to as the school year progresses in response to our kids' needs and interests and in response to our community's needs as well. It's been a busy week, but a great one.
I love it. And you know what, Brad? I know that this is really game time, right? You're making these decisions. You're trying to be supportive. Now, Millie in the comments here, who's a wonderful Teach Better ambassador, very active in our Edupreneur Mastermind, is talking about how this is her last day of summer vacation. She's getting back in the swing of things. I do have to say, Brad, I was socializing with some educators this week, and I feel it's important to mention, I know I mentioned it already this week numerous times on Daily Drop-In, that educators that have been in it for a few weeks now were voicing to me that they feel like this is harder than last year. And I say that not because I'm trying to speak negativity into the world, but I want others who maybe went home a little tired yesterday or found themselves struggling to hear that that's okay and that is normal, and everyone's experiencing the same thing. I had a friend text me yesterday that she was like, I don't know, I'm so tired. She's like, I got a COVID check because I was worried that I was so tired because I had COVID, and thank goodness I don't. But she was like, I don't remember being this tired. And I'm like, first of all, the beginning of the year is exhausting, and we are all moving together arm in arm in this uphill battle, and we're going to get there. But for those of you that are lagging a little bit this morning or going home a little tired, we just want you to know we care about you. That's normal. Please take care of your bodies because you will get through this. We will ensure that you are successful coming out the other end, but please know that is appropriate, and please to give yourself that time and space to rejuvenate and relax. It's so important.
Rae, a couple of the staff members I've worked with have observed exactly that tension. Why am I so tired? And why am I even more tired than last year when we were open schools in the midst of the pandemic? And one teacher was wondering if it was because we had such high hopes for a safe and usual return this school year. And depending on where you live and where you work and where you teach, that just simply hasn't come to pass. Many of us feel we're kind of back in the same sinking boat with which we greeted the 2020 school year. And so there's that sense of hope that's dashed, and there's that sense of, oh, here we go again. The other thing that can't be underestimated is the energy that we expend, not only to show up and be ready, but to welcome kids into our classrooms. And as Monty Syrie posted yesterday, the energy required to welcome kids into our hearts is significant, because we take them in, we draw them in, not just to our physical spaces, but to our emotional spaces as well. Once we meet them, they become ours. And as Monty shared yesterday, and I'll post this back to our comment stream, once they're there, they cannot never not be there again.
Yeah.
And your invitation, your encouragement for everyone to look after themselves, be gentle and kind with yourselves. Make sure that you're taking time to restore those energies, because it's the physical showing up and it's also the emotional welcoming that takes its toll.
Yeah, friends, there is nothing like teacher tired. And again, I'm saying this, we're discussing this not because we're trying to add negativity, but truly acknowledge the elephant in the room and celebrate. You not only got to Friday, but you are making a massive impact. And while you might be dragging your feet as you get home at the end of the day, or needing an extra cup of coffee as you get started, you're doing it to make an incredible impact on not just the students you have in your classroom, but all the students in your building and everybody in the Teach Better family. And more than anything else, we Thank you. There is nothing like teacher tired. People that are not teachers really struggle understanding teacher tired at the beginning of the year. I love the focus on taking care of yourself and celebrating that you're choosing to do this for others. What an incredible, incredible decision. Brad, I appreciate you bringing that up. That's such a fun way to celebrate early in the morning on a Friday, that perseverance element.
Thanks. I'm not sure if Carly Spina has joined us yet, but I do want to send a special shout out to your guest, Carly Spina, and to you, Ray, for really inspiring me yesterday. And in addition to my busy work life, I learned on the Daily Drop In yesterday that it was yesterday, Thursday, National Ear Piercing Day.
It
And
was. We
yeah,
discussed it.
I want you to know that, what you say and what you shout out to our Teach Better family does have an impact. And I have a new earring today. I know you were speculating about which of the Teach Better men might have had an earring or a piercing. I'm a Teach Better adjacent man, but I was just going to show off my new bling to you guys. And Carly, it wasn't nearly as painful as you indicated it might be. However, I did not get a cartilage piercing, but yeah, I kind of like the way it looks. I'm just taking it for a test drive.
I love it, Brad. I did confirm with at least Jeff Gargis yesterday. I asked him, he was like, Ray, I probably should say this on live. He'll be upset that I told you all this, but I was in a meeting and I was like, hey, we talked about you on Daily Drop-In. He's like, yeah, this was one of the first Daily Drop-Ins I didn't tune into. I chose to sleep in. And I was like, that's good for you, Jeff. I'm glad you slept in. I was like, if you go back and watch it, just know we talked about you and if you had ear piercings. And he goes, what did people guess? And I'm like, well, they guess like Carly predicted that you did. I said, I think I remember that you had. And he goes, I used to have 6 ear piercings. He's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm like, Jeff, I wish that you were a part of Daily Drop-In yesterday, but I will share that tomorrow morning. So Jeff Gargis was a rebel. I mean, and I don't know if any of you know this, but he used to have hair down to his shoulders. Yes. Can you imagine Jeff Gargis with hair down to his shoulders? Straight hair down to his shoulders.
Yeah. I'm getting images of Wayne Campbell in Wayne's World. I'm not sure if Jeff had a trucker hat or if he was kind of a head banging the long waves waving back and forth in his music days. But Jeff is certainly an individual, and he's certainly someone who grows through and is unapologetic about his successes and setbacks, and all of these things, including those 6 piercings, have helped make him the awesome dude he is today.
Ain't that the truth? Well, let's figure out, Brad, what holidays are today as we get into our good news segment here.
Looking forward to it.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Daily Drop-In. It is September 3rd, Friday, September 3rd, and we are getting into some good news. I am so thrilled. There are a lot of holidays today worth celebrating, but they all have a few different pieces here. So, Brad, I want to first shout out, it's National Food Bank Day. So for those of you that have an active community that share a food bank, or maybe your school is in partnership with one, please make sure to go a little bit of an extra mile, spend 30 seconds, try and donate or volunteer or be a part of those incredible groups that are in our communities. It's also National Lazy Mother's Day. So I don't know if any of you, shout out to our moms out there. We're giving you permission that after work today, you should be lazy because apparently there's a holiday that celebrates in your rest. I don't quite know the story behind that one, but this is your moment to say, okay, I'm going to go let my family know that we're doing movie night at home in our PJs. So I'm a huge supporter of that. The other thing on here, Brad, is that it is Skyscraper Day. And I thought that was interesting because I was listening to a podcast this morning before the Daily Drop-In that was giving some fun facts on Chicago, and Chicago is full of skyscrapers. So when I saw that it was Skyscraper Day, I'm like, oh, this matched so perfectly with the podcast I was listening to.
It's truly a day to celebrate moving up in the world, and Chicago is an incredible place to. Yeah, thank you. Chicago is an incredible place to see amazing edifices. Here in Ontario, we have the CN Tower, which I'm not sure if it qualifies as a skyscraper, more of a tower or a monument. But it's amazing how our downtown cores in all of our urban centers are just growing on the move, and as we try to respond to people's need to live, work, and just be community members safely, it's not unusual to see everything on the grow.
Yeah, it was so fun. The podcast I was listening to specifically was going through like weird facts about Chicago people may not know, and focus on the building and the lake and where the name came from was kind of where all these funny fun facts were coming from for Chicago. So if any of you are looking for Chicago fun facts, or I'm sure in the city or community that you live in, I'm sure there's some wacky fun facts about where certain buildings came from or how certain things were named. Go look that up. It was super interesting. So, Brad, I hear that we have some good news coming our way on this beautiful Friday morning.
We sure do, Ray. And all week we've been focusing on spaces and environments. And the story today comes to us from, where does it come from?
From a
Oh, it
really
comes from
cool news site.
it comes from goodnet.org. And Ray, I know that if you go outside and do some nature bathing, if you're engaging with the fresh air and the leaves and the flowers and the trees, does your heart ever sing?
I am constantly internally singing, but I
Yeah.
want to clarify, I don't typically sing out loud.
What if I told you that even though you may not be able to hear it, that trees actually sing?
I would ask you for more information. Please
I'm
say more on that.
I'm glad you asked. Hidden Life Radio is taking the electricity from trees activity and turning it into music, all with the goal of helping us consider our local tree canopy more carefully. Most people love trees and probably don't consider them all the time because they're such fixtures around us. But the electrical process involved through photosynthesis creates a frequency that can be captured and shared like ethereal spa music. It's really incredible. Once you have had a chance to listen to the singing of the trees, I don't think you'll look at a tree quite the same way again. Many of the living things around us really appear to have a heartbeat and a presence and almost a soul, if you will. And you can sort of hear the soul of the trees in this music that's tapped into by this radio station, tapping into the frequency of trees. The sounds are ever changing, they're enlightening. And there's a video of the forest singing that I'll share also. So the trees are singing. We just have to make sure that we're taking time to tune into the right frequency and listen to them.
I love that focus. That is not only obviously cool, like a really cool tidbit of information, but truly something. How powerful could that be to bring to your classroom later today or your classroom even as early as next week to say, what do we think of this? Like, could we go do this in our own communities? Is there a collection of trees that we could go explore this further? I've never heard of this before.
There are several tree stations, Ray, tied to different species of tree. And when I was visiting the site, I clicked on a couple of the links, and a couple of the links were silent. They appeared not to be working. So eventually, I did find a link that was working, and I wondered why might that be? Is something wrong?
Sure.
Actually, sometimes the trees electricity the electrical frequency of the trees is silent or dormant because photosynthesis is not actively taking place. And so if you are exploring photosynthesis or if you're exploring sort of the nature of trees with your class, you could pose that to them. Why might that be? Why might not there be any sound at this time from that tree? And again, to me, the analogy is the trees are asleep and awake, much like we human beings are asleep and awake, or even during the day, we have high periods and low periods. But, you know, it appears each of us, humans and otherwise, are responding to our environments in sort of magical hidden ways. And these radio stations allow us to uncover some of the hidden soul of the trees.
Oh, I love that. That is so neat. When you're not listening to trees, Brad, do you have a typical go-to station or music that you enjoy listening to?
Thanks. I listen to a lot of different types, and depending on the mood and depending on my task, I love classical. I love world, jazz, folk, rock, pop. I use YouTube music,
Okay.
and will often just dial in sort of a mood, or I'll tap in a favorite song that's top of mind and ask it to start radio, and it'll just feed me lots and lots of goodness. When my daughter and I are driving together, she likes to be the radio DJ, And so from her phone, she'll dial up the tracks that she wants me to listen to. And it's amazing. I love that connection, listening to music together with my daughter, but also I find myself recalling a song that we've listened to together. I'll tap it in at work, and it's just a huge boost because it'll keep serving me up the Megan Hughes goodness. So, how about you? Are your favorite kinds of music for you that soothe you or lift you up?
Yeah, I mean, I love music, and I think that music I utilize to really set the tone for my environment, which is, as you were sharing about this positive experience with your daughter, I'm like, holy cow, I use music all the time to adjust my mood, enhance my mood, and that also is something that we do in the classroom all the time. We bring students into an environment. We can choose to use the one of their senses of hearing, of how to set the tone for them walking into that new learning space. I know that we touched on the use of five senses a little bit earlier this week in our daily drop-in episode. It was either Monday or Tuesday, but that focus was really to foster the right environment for students, and depending on what they were doing, you either wanted to amp them up and put on, the bass really loud, or maybe you wanted to soothe them, quiet them down, you put on more quiet music. There's so many different elements and beauty with that, and that is something that I am extremely passionate about. So you will find me either blasting some pop music to get the energy moving in my own mood, trying to get some energy flowing. I'm also a massive Dave Matthews Band fan. If that's always kind of on in the background while I'm working, as long as I'm not in a meeting. So I also have mentioned that I love a good like saxophone jazz music is my favorite. So I truly feel that it's not so much loving one specific genre, but utilizing music to put you in a certain, mental space is so fun.
Couldn't agree more. I got a wonderful compliment from a staff member who's new to our school yesterday. When she walked in, she was greeted by the sound of soft music in the hallways, which we are in the habit of doing for both school entry and throughout the day. So a couple of things she said. One was it was just a nice surprise. It's unusual to walk into a school where the music helps to set the tone, and the tone that we strive for is welcome, welcome, soothing. You know, generosity, if that makes any sense. It's just we want to make sure that everybody that walks in the building feels welcome and a sense of purpose and place. And the music can, just as you said, uplift according to the task, according to the mood. But for her, it was really the gift of surprise, coming to a new school and being welcomed by some music in the hall. That really meant a lot to her. So I really appreciated that she shared that back. That's exactly it. I love it when your intent is when your intent and impact align, because they don't always, and we've got to be constantly mindful of where our intent and impact aren't meeting people's needs. But this was an occasion when it did.
Oh, so fun. I know we're going to continue this conversation with environment in our next segment here with our brainstorm bank. So we're going to transition there and keep this conversation going.
See you on the flip side.
Hey friends, you know how the brainstorm bank works. You can head to teachbetter.com/daily drop-in, submit your questions, things that you want us to discuss, be a brainstorming partner for you. We in no way promise that we have the answer, but we absolutely want to be here, be accessible, and connect you with content that hopefully can get you the solution that best fits you, your community, your students, and everything in between. We've been focusing all week on environment, fostering the right environment. And Brad, I know you've tuned in a bunch this week. The conversation has gone a lot of different ways. And so we kind of started the week talking about some basics of physical environment. And then we have totally gotten on a different track Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday with our incredible guests, really getting into culture and feel, which works so beautifully with our musical element here, really finding those connections of how music can help foster a specific environment that we're looking for. Brad, I know this is a topic that you feel passionately about. I don't know if that passion comes from being a school leader where you're constantly thinking about the culture of your school, or if you had this passion before, but I think that environment is a huge component of setting spaces that are meaningful to not only our students and our staff.
Rae, as a visual arts teacher before I became a school leader,
I didn't
classroom
know that.
design was classroom design was my passion. And one of the true gifts of being a visual arts teacher, and I was a middle school visual arts teacher, was allowing the classroom to reflect the work, the lives, the thoughts, the feelings, and the communication of the kids that were walking in. And so when kids came into the classroom, in a visual arts room, like other rooms, you have to make sure that it's physically organized for safety and efficiency. When we do that, when routines, when passageways or traffic flow is clear, then it gives everyone a sense of calm and ease. The more we can answer the how do I, why do I for ourselves and for kids, the physical space impacts the inner emotional space that the kids are bringing into the room. They know what to expect, and you're trying to create a space that they look forward to joining for a lot of different reasons. But um, in the visual arts classroom, gradually the classroom would be filled, kind of like a salon or gallery, from floor to ceiling with student artwork. Both reflecting what kids are creating, but also providing wonderful provocations for conversation for different classes coming in, who could also make connections between what they were trying to accomplish and what others were doing. But also, because I taught seventh grade and eighth grade, the seventh graders would see some of the eighth grade projects or assignments, and kind of get kind of whet their appetite for what they would experience the following year. So yeah, the combination of physical space plus emotional space plus really exciting content, I think, is part of that environment too. It's content that kids look forward to engaging with, and finally, it's you as an individual, being vulnerable and being you, just being real. All of those things work together to make classrooms and school spaces where people look forward to coming, and you want to leave them feeling glad that they came, even for a small reason.
Brad, I know you have so much to share on this topic, but two major takeaways that I want to dive deeper into, if you don't mind, and what you
Of
just
course.
shared really dealt with. You touched on movement, how people physically move through the environment. I think that's really important to dive into at some point this morning.
Mhm.
But also, you discussed content in the classroom. I think that is a missing component of our dialogue this week that I'd love to also explore. The idea that teachers are putting content in their classroom that can enhance the learning experience is actually something that teachers do frequently, but choosing that content can be challenging. And there's research out there to discuss what type of content best supports the students. I love your example of showcasing student work, because it's not only a celebration, but a point of interest, reflection, imagination, creativity. That's really interesting. Can you speak more to choosing that content that you are putting up on the walls or on the ceilings of your room?
Of course, and I'll go back to another sort of art analogy. So the analogy is that as teachers, we are curators of our spaces, much like a gallery or a salon owner would curate an exhibit. And so it comes down to knowing your content, so knowing what you have on hand, knowing your program, or knowing what you want visitors, guests, or students to see, know, learn, experience in the space, and then selecting from among the resources impactful work or impactful media that is going to make a learning difference for the moment. And just as you said, research is showing us that the selection of that media, the selection of the content is key, and that the volume of that content is also key. We're learning that it's essential to declutter our classrooms from walls and walls of paper, of anchor charts, even evidence of learning, and constantly curate the space so students feel confident and relaxed to access the work that they need to support their learning on an ongoing basis. Making sure that what they are sharing with you in terms of content and product is being reflected back to them. And you can actually make the walls part of the classroom conversation.
Of course. And I think that is done in so many ways, right? Whether you are hanging something up that maybe changes week to week, month to month, semester to semester, or I had a massive chalk wall in my former classroom, and it was it was the entire wall. Like, if you are in a rectangular space, a rectangular classroom, it was one of the big long walls, whole chalkboard. And the reason that existed was, to your point, of wanting to have the freedom to curate any content we wanted up there. So whether we were drawing it or sticking it or taping it or hanging it, there was so many different opportunities to display content that was relevant to what our learning environment could look like based on what we were focusing on. So I think that the choice and it is really intentional. And I love that you bring up the decluttering, because it used to be very common practice for us to fill our walls with posters and posters and posters and posters. It was kind of like, and I say this analogy to be dramatic, but have you ever been to a restaurant that had like a gum wall, which like literally grosses me out saying it, but it was just pieces of gum on pieces of gum? Used to see posters the same way in the classroom. We're just trying to layer all these different pieces together. And with that new research that continues to be something that we explore, really trying to be intentional with what we hang on our walls can have a massive impact on students truly consuming and interacting with the material versus not really seeing it in the same manner.
Ray, I honor teachers and educators that are really crafting their spaces to be warm and welcoming, and that
Yeah.
involves decor, furnishings, setting up spaces that are distinct for reading, relaxing, regulating. I also want teachers to know that it's okay for your classrooms to be works in progress. It's okay for you to communicate that, just make that intention clear to your kids that this classroom will be a space that we design together. It gives yourself permission to pause amid the busyness of the beginning of the school year, if you're still in classroom setup mode, or whether you are digging into, okay, reckoning with, is this space meeting our needs? It's okay to make changes as you go and to give yourself permission for it to be a canvas that you add to, rather than a masterpiece on the first day of school.
Well, I love that, Brad. And there are so many teachers out there that love to build their spaces alongside their students, right? You're starting with a blank canvas. That doesn't mean you aren't ready for the school year. It means that you are wanting it to be a collaborative conversation that is ever evolving. And depending on your focus and the students that enter into your learning space for that day, there's a variety of different choices that you can make. I love that permission that you just provided people, that it doesn't need to be something that is a masterpiece that's fully done and it's going to stay there just the way you had it that entire school year, but it should be a living and breathing representation of your goals. And that is something that should and can change. An element of that, Brad, kind of transitioning us into that other topic I really enjoyed you touched on earlier, was how you move throughout a space. I find this to be actually a really interesting element of designing a space. It's something that I really enjoy discussing with student teachers that I've been able to mentor in the past, of not only deciding how you as the educator move throughout a space, but how students physically move and interact with different elements of the space. Now, this came up with COVID as we were really diving into airflow, which was a brand new kind of like mentality to carry with this focus of how people actually move in a space, right? We have hallways that you go up and other hallways that you go down. And that was really as a safety measure most recently. But tell me a little bit about how movement can impact a space.
It's a really delicate dance because you want to align the fixtures and furniture and other decor in your classroom in ways that promote easy flow among the classroom, so that the routines and the curricular activities are aligned, so that kids know where to go for what reason and why. That also goes to how students enter and exit the classroom from recess or lunch breaks, or how they transition, if possible, from a desk activity to, say, a carpet activity, or how they transition from independent activities to group activities. When I'm doing classroom observations of teachers' practice, one of the things that I look for is, are transitions smooth, safe, and effective?
Mm.
If they are not yet smooth, safe, or effective, if there's bottlenecks or log jams, if there are kids that appear to be confused about where to go, there's only one teacher, and sometimes there can be 30 or more students. And so it's always okay to reflect on what's working and what's not working for you and your students. And just as you said, Ray, COVID has put a whole new layer and an appropriate lens on making sure that we have the physical distance and just the space to move and breathe. Uh, it's of utmost importance to create conditions where we are minimizing the risk of spread of any virus. And this really highlights the need for us to align our spaces with our intentions. The transitions are key to maintaining regulation, regulation in the classroom where, again, kids are not anxious about what's happening next, about where to go, what to do, how to move. And that's all part of the instruction. We can't take for granted that kids are going to automatically know which way to go or where to move. Those are the investments that we make in sort of teaching routines and constantly refining the routines, recognizing that each of our classrooms, well, of course, is a learning space, and that learning includes the educator. After seeing that classroom entry kids, it appears not to be working, and here's why. Let's get your input to how it might be more effective. Does anything need to be moved? Do we need to work further upstream? Is the way we're getting organized for class when we come in? But it's the interaction of the physical space with the people in the space and with the intention for learning that the educator provides.
Well, and your evaluation of not only being reflective as an educator, but also involving the student's voice in that experience is essential. And I know that so many teachers right now in the beginning days of instruction are having students enter the classroom and exit and practice that flow, and having students practice different engagement in terms of movement in the classroom. I know Lindsay's jumping in. We've had a few comments on the screen that so far, just kind of adding to our dialogue. I apologize those of you listening on Teach Better Talk podcast, which we convert these live shows into after the fact. You've missed some of the good morning messages and little thoughts, but this is definitely one worth noting. Lindsay's commenting here saying, as a kindergarten teacher, I used to walk around the room on my knees to check out the room from a student viewpoint. Made all the difference. I mean, little nuances like that our teachers are choosing to do is essential. And I love to be able to see those fun ideas that we all can choose to do to better enhance our students' experiences. I know, Brad, we have a course in the Teach Better Academy that focuses on how to support a mentee. It's called Mentoring is an Art. And in that course, we actually have a suggestion that we provide our viewers. If you are observing a student teacher or a mentee, one of the observation styles you could do is to track their movement throughout the classroom. And there's just a little activity to kind of show you how to model. And in that experience, you're kind of seeing not only how the students engage with the physical space, but how the teacher chooses to move throughout the room, which is extremely important when you're looking at classroom management and making sure that all students are getting a similar style of support, which is a really cool activity if you guys are looking for something fun.
They really are all interlocking pieces of the puzzle, aren't they, Rae? Because you just mentioned the directions the teacher gives before transitions. Those are key. Those directions need to be clear. They need to be refined. And they also need to be heard and understood by all of the kids before they move. And there's a lot of refinement that we can do with both our verbal instructions, but also our nonverbals. As educators, we do a lot of talking. And often kids are not hearing. It's not just even listening. They're not hearing. And so anytime that we can use gestures or refer to an anchor chart, if we can activate the senses, just as you mentioned, if we can activate the sight, the sound, maybe not the taste in the transitions. We're going to leave the taste out of it if that's okay with you. But if you can activate sight, sound, or maybe even use music to cue a transition. Some educators select certain tracks of music to cue a specific routine or behavior. So it could be the Imperial March from Star Wars to signal that it's cleanup time, or it could be a fanfare to signal that you need to turn and face the teacher ahead at his or her anchor spot. The music can be just put on once the kids are taught to recognize and then to respond accordingly. But again, anything we can do to limit the amount that we say, because gosh, haven't we all said, I keep saying it and repeating it and repeating it. If that's the case, something is not yet working, and it could be refined by turning the verbal into a nonverbal.
I love that suggestion, Brad. I don't hear that suggestion often enough. The use of other means to communicate. I think that teachers and so many teachers truly, even shout out to the teachers that choose to teach in a little bit more of a traditional sense, so many teachers say, I'm just so tired of talking. And the reality is that talking is not the only means to communicate. And you also don't need to be the source of communication constantly. There's other avenues you can use to communicate, maybe even more effectively than using your voice. So I love the suggestion to think today as you go throughout your day on how you communicate. So many educators are trained to not only communicate with their voice, but also with hand gestures, hand signals, using proximity to communicate with the student. These are all things we naturally do. However, as you get into your career, don't just do them naturally and blindly. Choose to do them with intentionality. How can you fold those into other elements of your communication in that environment? Because don't we all feel good when we all feel confident with what is being asked of us? And if you can create that environment intentionally with students, that they are constantly understanding that certain hand movements and everything else give them pieces of information, they're going to be more engaged looking for those.
Rae, I'd like to recommend a resource to any of our viewers and listeners that would like to learn more about the use of nonverbals. And it was tremendously impactful for me as an educator, but also as a school leader. We had the opportunity to learn from educator and consultant Michael Grinder. Michael is an expert in neurolinguistic programming and the use of nonverbals to reduce the amount of teacher talk and increase the amount of student response. And his resource is called Envoy, Envoy. It's a resource that I used as a beginning, developing, and even as an experienced teacher to refine my classroom management approaches, again, to reduce the amount of teacher talk and to rely on things like voice modulation, gesture, position, and those nonverbals that make all the difference. The other cool thing about the Envoy resource, Rae, is that if you as a teacher are experiencing a particular difficulty with a routine, Michael's resource offers you a chance to sort of diagnose or reflect, and then to take one of the opportunities or some of the advice in the resource. And you can even invite a principal or critical friend, a colleague, to come in and observe you. So it actually allows you to diagnose, test, and then sort of journal back on the response. It's an incredible resource, and I'll happy to make sure that a link to Envoy and to Michael Grinder's work is back in our discussion stream.
Yeah, I would love that because I don't do enough work in that space. I truly don't explore enough. I will absolutely be looking that up, Envoy. For those of you that are watching right now, I know we're streaming currently on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Feel free to share not only this stream, but share those major takeaways so that other educators that may not have gotten up as early to start their morning alongside the Daily Drop-In team, but also are just looking for, building their resource library, share these aha moments with them so they can continue to benefit from those suggestions as well. So thank you for those of you who continue to share. Brad, we have had some crazy discussions this week, and I know that we really focused on the culture element a great deal. I'd love to kind of recap the week a little bit for those
Me
of
too.
those people who maybe weren't able to join every moment of Daily Drop-In. And then I'd love to kind of end with not only a preview of next week, but also any major takeaway or suggestions that people could be considering this weekend to continue to kind of foster their thought on this. Should we transition here?
Looking forward to it.
All right. I think this is my favorite transition, guys. So enjoy this moment.
I am feeling that transition. I'm feeling it.
I have to tell you, I don't know all these by heart yet, because especially this one, we only use it once a week. So this is week 5. I just feel like you kind of forget what they all sound like. That is my favorite one. I love that one. That's the kind of music that I put on like to get going, get focused, that type of like high energy music. That's my jam, people.
One of our first transitions, Rae, really features sax heavenly, and I have heavily. And so I wondered if that might have been your favorite one. But yeah, that one is, I just feel that one. I love it. It also represents that we're wrapping up the episode, and it's an awesome opportunity to recap and reflect. So it works on so many levels.
There you go. Yeah, I love, see, all different types of music, bring it into the Daily Drop-In Morning Show. Let's recap the week a little bit. So it's Friday. Happy Friday to everyone, September 3rd. we had a whole week of conversation, which I know we've been able to touch on just a bit. Monday morning, as you guys know, we always start our week with Mr. Jeff Gargis joining the show. And we were able to kind of begin the conversation around environment. There was a kind of hodgepodge of suggestions on Monday. If you're looking for a few different suggestions on physical space, we actually did touch on that Monday, just like we touched on it again today. I would even argue that today we gotten a little bit deeper on the why and the how behind some of that dialogue. But we did also discuss the wallpaper element in a classroom, adding color to your classroom. So that was kind of a fun dialogue there. On Tuesday, we actually welcomed a new face to the Teach Better family. We had Claude join us. She had a French background. Her name was actually something that her and I discussed off camera for a while. But she was an educator for 25 years. She wrote an incredible book that she was able to kind of pull some content out of. And she was really dedicated to enhancing the culture of your classroom through activities. And she shared at least 2 or 3. There was some incredible activities that she was able to communicate to us that you could truly take and go do with your students, that had students truly being reflective and having those vulnerability moments in the classroom. Brad, were you able to catch that conversation?
I sure was. And what struck me about Claude's suggestions was they really activate what I like to call the gift of surprise. And it's about making a classroom a unique space where unexpected things, out of the ordinary things, much like the teacher walking into the school for the first time and hearing the music, uh, providing kids with novel opportunities that respect what they have to offer. And as a former French educator too, I really enjoyed getting to know Claude.
Yeah, she was wonderful. And like I said, guys, I loved that episode specifically on Tuesday if you didn't catch it, or if you just have gone throughout your week and you've been meaning to go back and write a few things down. I do not have a copy of her book. I hope to get it at some point, but I know that so many of her suggestions that she gave were my type of suggestions. They were suggestions that you can take from this morning's conversation and implement with students the following day. I really wholeheartedly believe that educators deserve and need more of those tactical takeaways. And she was chock full of them, and they had huge impacts. There was a lot of discussion in there. So definitely something to go revisit. Wednesday, we got into some gaming conversation, which again, I did not expect. We kind of transitioned into an environment of using gamification and game-based play as the focus of our dialogue with Dustin Statz, who is an educator and kind of transitioned into supporting educators by incorporating games into the learning environment. And Brad, one of my aha moments during that dialogue was the difference between gamification and game-based play. This difference between, do you choose to have the game be the way in which somebody or a student would learn in your classroom? Or is it kind of a part of the culture where it's enhancing the experience of learning? There was a really great dialogue with Dustin about that on Wednesday.
That was an aha moment for me, Ray, as I was listening to the daily drop in later on the podcast. And understanding that difference helps us as educators know where our entry point might be. I may be wrong, but it sounds to me that weaving gamification through everything that we do, there's going to be a real artistry to that, and there's going to be a learning curve. It may be possible just to embrace a spirit of play. I know that Brianne Fennell's in our audience this morning, and she would love, to hear that educators are embracing the spirit of play. And so maybe you can take an opportunity for review or consolidation, or an opportunity to clarify misunderstandings, and turn it into a question and answer game, or you can turn it into anything that engages the kids in something different than pushing pencil onto paper.
Yeah, and I want to give a shout out Brianne Fennell, who we also gave a shout out on Wednesday too. So just to add some context, if you're not familiar, she actually is a very active member of the Teach Better family, but she is also a very active blogger. And one of the blogs that she is able to provide to our network every single week is How to Play Better. So please feel free to check that out. There are also, another thing I forgot to mention Wednesday, a ton of blogs on gamification at teachbetter.com. If you guys enjoyed learning that idea, but maybe wanted to research more, that could be an easy spot to begin, kind of looking into what other people have blogged about related to that gamification practice. Or reach out to one of us. We'd love to connect you. I have a ton of educating friends that love to talk shop about gamification if you're looking for someone to chat with. On Thursday, Carly Spina joined us. I know, Brad, you're a huge Carly Spina fan. Carly
Huge.
has done so many things to enhance our understanding of a variety of topics. We didn't even get to discussing EL education, which was so funny. We knew we wanted to get there, but we didn't. Her focus really had to do with fostering the climate and culture in a classroom, family, and bringing joy into the classroom. That was a major discussion point from Thursday, is how do you intentionally bring joy into your physical space, whether it be your desk in your classroom or your students' learning environments, intentionally putting things that foster joy and being intentional in looking for those things that just so happen to come across in your day. So really fun dialogue there.
I was laughing out loud as I listened to that episode last evening, and just the warmth that Carly exudes, and actually your partnership on the daily drop in and in the audio was just it's something that you could see, hear, and feel. And it seems to me, after listening to your discussion with Carly, that the path to that joy, just as you observed, comes the path is the relationship between yourself and a child. And it reminds me of the prime directive of an approach to classroom orchestration that was called quantum teaching or quantum learning. And that prime directive is theirs to ours, ours to theirs. That is, we seek to understand what is important in a child's world, theirs, and we make a connection to ours as we bring kids into our schools and classroom spaces. And then through the relationship and through the learning and through reflecting the child's experiences in our learning spaces, we send them back into their world, influenced and impacted, just as we are influenced and impacted by their world and by their learning. And so, personalizing our personalizing our learning spaces is founded on those relationships, seeking to understand what kids are needing, looking to learn, what their community experiences are like before and as we bring them into our learning spaces.
Oh, so powerful. And Brad, I really enjoyed our kind of recap, our little addition that we were able to dive into this morning on our Friday daily drop-in, is kind of bringing it all back together to that physical space. Within 1 week, we've discussed a variety of different elements. Now the concept of what we're hanging on our walls and how we're moving throughout our learning environments was able to be a focus, which I think does allow us to have kind of a circular view of this concept of environment. What are the things that as a teacher, you can choose to say, I'm going to focus on this one element this week. And when I feel like I've mastered it, I can add another element. So regardless of the type of educator you are, if you want to focus on physical space first or cultural elements first, we'd love for you to have an opportunity to get started so that you can continue to foster this discussion. So we had a lot of good things happen this week. And next week, I hope will be the same. Should we preview next week just slightly?
100%.
All right, next week is going to be great. We are focusing on being more than a classroom teacher. And this truly was inspired off of a conversation that I had with one of my colleagues, one of my friends who is an educational leader, kind of discussing the difference between being a strong classroom teacher and a strong staff member. And so we're going to be able to dive into how you as an educator can continue to not only enhance your craft in the classroom, in those four walls that you continue to reside within, but also really becoming a part of the entire school community and how that can enhance the work that we do in our classroom. We have so many guests joining us. Obviously, we'll start the week with Jeff Gargas, of course, but that will not start on Monday. Monday is Labor Day, so we will not have a daily drop-in Monday morning. We are encouraging all of you to take the morning off. Don't wake up too early. But don't worry, you still get Jeff Gargas starting us off on Tuesday. He will be starting our week Tuesday morning, September 7th, to dive into that concept. On the 8th, on Wednesday, we'll have Andrea joining us. Andrea from the Teach Better team is a very active member of the Ambassador crew. And also she built that entire program. So we'll be able to dive into her brain a little bit on this topic. Then we have Katie Miglin joining us on Thursday, which is always fun discussion. And then Brad, of course, you'll be wrapping us up on Friday, your typical spot right there. So
sure will. Looking forward to it already.
Oh, it's going to be so good. So as you all are finishing your morning coffee on this beautiful Friday, kind of getting into a really successful day and weekend ahead, Brad, any food for thought, any challenges you can provide our network to kind of wrap up this idea that they could consider for this weekend?
For sure, Ray. Thanks. Reflecting on all of those interlocking puzzle pieces, it can really feel overwhelming for an educator who's seeking to improve his or her environment to meet their own needs and kids' needs. A piece of advice I often give teachers is to decide what you think would make the biggest impact with the smallest investment of time or energy. Sometimes you can ask the question, if only, and then fill in the blank, and then figure out what small change you could make, what small refinement you could make to work towards that goal. So much of what we do and when we craft our classroom spaces is not an on-off switch. It's gradually adding to the canvas until it becomes what you want to see. A process of constant refinement that all of us are engaged in on a daily basis, based on moment-to-moment feedback from the kids and from our five senses, what we see, hear, feel, and experience. Uh, the other thing that I wanted to let people know is that, like an art gallery, your school space is filled with opportunity to visit, discuss, and to view different aspects of practice that may make a difference in yours. So many of us are so well connected with the staff members through our buildings. Your colleagues are tremendous resources to problem solve, to observe, to diagnose, and to build bridges through trying to improve things for kids. I guess, Ray, the last invitation that I have, the last challenge, and you mentioned Labor Day, is long weekends for many of us will represent a gift of time that we can give to ourselves or to our loved ones, to our favorite people and activities. And there are all kinds of obstacles, understandable obstacles to that, just the busyness of life and the busyness of making sure we're ready for next Tuesday. But if at all possible, take time to reconnect with the things that you love and the people that you love. That time to restore, especially on a long weekend, is essential to be able to dive in and to give your daily best next Tuesday.
Oh, so good. I cannot wait. We are excited to not only be a part of the start to your Friday this morning, but also be a part of the start to your week next week. For those of you not celebrating Labor Day, we're going to miss you on Monday. We're sorry we won't be here, but we're excited to kick off Tuesday. For those of you who are celebrating Rosh Hashanah, which starts Monday night, for many of those who acknowledge the Jewish faith, happy Rosh Hashanah. We're thrilled to welcome in that Jewish New Year, and we'll be back Friday morning with our daily drop-in discussion on so many different things. Don't forget, we are absolutely here to support you, regardless of what's going on in the world. So please feel free to utilize this morning show to start your day off with a positive mindset, but also to be a brainstorm family for you as you continue to enhance the work that you're doing. Thank you for all that you do. Please enjoy your last sip of coffee. Brad, I hope you have a wonderful day ahead. And if you need anything, guys, we are here. So let us know. Cheers, friends. See you
Cheers.
later.